You want me scared, you want me weak, you want me brain dead and asleep. You want us trapped while you all laugh behind the scenes. You want us sick, you think we're dumb. You want us blind and you want us drugged. You want us poor while you get more of everything. But you don't get to tell me what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell me what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so I don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. You want us tricked, you want us numb. You want us scared and you want us stung. You want us shocked and you want us barred in every way. You want our minds, you want our time. You want us framed up in your crime. I hope you know that it's time to go and we're taking names. 'Cause you don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell us what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and we burn the books. So we don't believe a single word you say. Want you out, we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. We see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies.
What I see is sports is on the frontier of how to handle this frontier of people who are trans. It's on the frontier of how to resolve that. And I'm making this up now. Imagine the future of sports does not distinguish sex. It distinguishes and sorts people by hormone ratios. I'm making this up.
I know you are.
Imagine that if that were the case.
Imagine it.
That would be interesting. You get a hormone test. You're in this range, and then you compete against other people with the same range of hormones.
That's ridiculous.
That's
Neil, that is ridiculous.
No, it's not. I'll tell you why it's
You're
not
going to
ridiculous.
give every single
Okay, look, I'm telling you that.
whole
We're going to skip over Piers Morgan's not diatribe, but stating the obvious. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's looking tweaked out. Like he's looking straight up tweaked.
Right.
Where does he go?
Mentally,
Where does he go?
Stabbed
Here we go.
a golf fan. And when she
Listen to
started
this.
playing golf after she transitioned, she was allowed to play off the women's tees.
Talking about
which are
Caitlyn
50
Jenner.
yards further than the men's tees. And she quickly realized that she was still smashing it 300 yards down, and obviously was then beating all the women that she played. So she now plays back off the male tees because her biology is that of a man. And I feel
Look at
that
Neil.
was the most honest way to do it.
He's tweaking
I also
harder than
feel that
Christian
if you want to
Freeland.
have a separate category, have a trans category, or have trans women compete against men, which is their biology. Isn't that the scientific way to resolve this?
I don't have a solution. What I started this section of the conversation by saying that how you handle trans athletes is a frontier in sports that does not yet have a full solution. And so, and I made up an example, like maybe you could divide people by hormones
or sex.
I don't know if that would work physiologically, but
or logically.
at the end of the day, we watch sporting events because they are competitively interesting.
Yep.
And so something's going to have to get resolved there. And I don't have that solution.
I do.
I do.
And
I just tossed up hormones.
You have a trans category, or you have the trans women competing against biological men, which is what they are.
Neil deGrasse. He's getting a
I
call.
completely respect trans rights.
That may be. That may be how it settles, but I don't know. But I'm.
By the way, Neil deGrasse Tyson, former respected scientist, I don't have a solution to the problem that I just caused for absolutely no reason. That's the definition of progressivism for all of you out there who are wondering, how do you define woke? How do you define progressive? Progressive is not having a solution to the manufactured problem you just created out of thin air. And now people are hypothesizing, how much is this dude tweaking that he's getting a call from his drug dealer in the middle of an interview? My joke is he's getting a call from his handlers like, Neil, you need to get off right now. You need to stop talking and you need to shut down your big mouth that doesn't know when to stop doubling down on your abject, outrageous insanity. That man is I guess he's an astrophysicist. Is he an actual astrophysicist? By the way, intro song is 5 times August. Liars, Cheats, and Crooks. And I've given you all the link there. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Where do we go? Credentials? Qualification? Now let's go credentials. I guess that might be the word. Credentials. He attended the Bronx High School of Science, went to a major in physics at Harvard. Oh boy, he's doing them justice. And earned a master's degree in astronomy from the University of Texas in Austin. Astrology, like he's Cleo. Call me now. I'll tell you your futures. Anyone who's older than 40 is going to get that joke. Good evening, everybody. How goes the battle? Let me make sure that audio's good. I think I would have gotten the text by now if I weren't live and audible everywhere. Everyone, I don't have my phone because my wife is on it for our weekly Zoom call with the family. She's coming in to give it to me right now. Thank you very much. She just got off the weekly Zoom call with the family. Let me just take a picture of the computer and a hand for scale. Okay, so I got the new computer, peeps. This is the new setup. Now I'm learning. My fat fingers have not yet adjusted to the keyboard. I got the new computer. Some things are not yet fully smooth lined in, like I didn't download the widget on Rumble that allows me to preserve the Rumble rants, so I might miss some Rumble rants. And if you're going to be upset if I miss the Rumble rants, please don't. I do my best. Same thing goes for YouTube. The best way to do it, go over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. All of the tipped questions there remain highlighted in perpetuity throughout the universe of the live stream. And Rumble Studio, which I'm using right now, is going to be making some improvements based on my recommendations after having now thoroughly used this streaming platform, which is amazing. Neil deGrasse Tyson, people, is an astrophysicist or an astrologer. He's an astrologer or an astronomist, astrologer. I don't know what the solution is to the problem that I created that never existed before. You have sex categories, weight categories within the sex categories, and that's how it's been, and that's how it's going to be. And you want to create a trans category, you go ahead and do that. Or because there's no there's no biological, there's no woman who's just, there's some, Manon Rhéaume. Everyone remember Manon Rhéaume? A goaltender, wanted to compete in the NHL, which has no sex prohibitions. It's just a question of merit. And there have been, I think, one woman who ever made it into the NHL, Manon Rhéaume. It didn't last long. There was one female kicker in football as well. You want to have biological women who are transitioning into men? Let them compete with the men. That doesn't seem to be where the issue is. The issue is men competing with women and beating the ever-loving piss out of them, literally, in some cases. That's the way it's been. That's the way it's going to go back to when sanity returns to this earth. Susie C. over in vivabarneslaw.locals.com says, Viva, you have a gamer set up. And USMC Burroughs says, keep up the work, make science great again. Neil deGrasse Tyson has destroyed his reputation, his legacy, and his future. All for what? I mean, they've got something on him. He was at a Diddy party. I'm going to look it up. All right. By the way, if you have any lingering doubts as to why you shouldn't trust doctors or professionals anymore, bada bing, bada boom. Before we even get started, let me thank our two sponsors of the evening, and they're interesting and wonderful and new sponsors. By the way, okay, so this is a very interesting thing. I spent time on the phone with the founder of this company to see how it works. Crowd Health. It's not an insurance, people. And I can tell you my experience after having lived in Florida for a little bit of time now. You have your insurance, you pay up the wazoo, out the butt, but at the very least, in theory, you have the coverage when you need it. Then the only problem is, depending on what you're looking for, sometimes they tell you, oh, that doctor's out of your network, they call it. And so you have to go wait to find a doctor in your network, or you pay out of pocket, like I've been doing for some things that came up at the last minute that I didn't want to wait to find someone of my network. Crowd Health is on a mission to revolutionize healthcare. It's not health insurance. It's a better way to plan for healthcare through crowdfunding. Basically, I'm on the phone with the founder, and I was like, it sounds a lot like Give, Send, Go for your health. And it's something very, very interesting. Stop sending money to fear-mongering insurance companies who profit off you while barely covering your medical needs. Check out Crowd Health. How does it work? For $185 for an individual or $605 for a family of 4 or more, you get access to a community of people who are willing to help in the event of an emergency. You get access to telemedicine visits, discounted prescriptions because they negotiate your prices down for a lot of this stuff, and much more without doctors' networks getting in the way. And of course, you'll join the crowd, a group of members just like you who want to help pay for each other's unexpected medical events. Join the Crowd Health revolution. Get help with your healthcare needs today for just $99 per month for your first 3 months with promo code VIVA Health. Crowdhealth.com. Crowd Health is not insurance. Learn more at joincrowdhealth.com. It's an interesting thing, and I spent a lot of time on the phone with the founder. And it's crowdfunding, so everybody, you give a certain amount every month. And when you have an emergency or medical need, you submit your receipts. They, through their team, negotiate the prices down because it's basically cash payments for the doctor, so you don't have to worry about a network. And the other members who are contributing monthly as well decide to contribute to any given person's not campaign, but any needs. And you build up credit so that people who don't say no, when their time of need comes around, other people don't say no to them. And you basically crowdsource for your healthcare needs and negotiate better prices with their team. They have a team that will work with every individual who has a claim. It's an amazing thing. Crowd Health, check it out. And the link is in the description. And our second and last sponsor of the evening, we go from not health insurance, Crowd Health, crowdfunding to protecting your house. This is another thing that I actually had to learn. I didn't learn the hard way, touch wood. When you get down to Florida, there's a crime called house stealing, also known as title theft, where criminals can transfer your home's title into their name with just a single document and wipe out your equity without you even knowing it. I'm living in Florida now, and this didn't happen in Canada, or at least not as much, but Florida is the hotbed for this. Family in Sarasota, Home Title Lock caught a cyber thief from New York trying to sell their property on a popular real estate website. The thief had fraudulently changed the title, but Home Title Lock quickly detected it and restored the title back to their rightful owner. Imagine if they hadn't had a Home Title Lock, it would have been disastrous. If you're not monitoring your title, these criminals can get away with this, leaving you, the homeowner, to deal with the aftermath in court. Best way to protect your equity is with triple lock protection from our friends at Home Title Lock. Triple Lock is 24/7 monitoring, alerts, restoration services. You can get a free 30-day trial, free title history report when you use the promo code VIVA30 at HomeTitleLock.com, or use the link in the description below. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code VIVA30 for 30 days of protection with the report for free. There was another thing I wanted to start with, by the way, that I decided not to. I just thought, well, can we see this? See, oh no, I can't. Oh no, you see, now when I can't bring up a GIF in Rumble Studio. We're going to talk about a lot tonight. And we're going to talk about the Daniel Penny situation. And I was going to start with a couple of things. We're going to go to one for a bit of humor here. But listen to BLM. This is coming from Luke Rudkowski. And if you don't follow him, you should follow him. We Are Change. We Are Change? Luke Rudkowski. I was just on with him last week. He's amazing. He's fantastic. BLM. You remember what happened when Derek Chauvin, who, spoiler alert for the woman in this video, got convicted for killing Derek Chauvin, even though ample evidence suggests that reasonable doubt existed, to say the least. Listen to this. They're already promising violence if Daniel Penny is not convicted. And we're going to talk about the dirtiness that is going on in that courtroom of the judge who's trying to rig to get any form of a conviction out of that jury. Listen to this.
I'm the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Greater New York. I stand here heartbroken because I have to hug a father who knows that the murderer of his son will most likely go free, who has to look in the face of a jury that no matter the facts, no matter the expert witnesses, no matter the people yelling on that train that day to let Jordan go, you will kill him.
I do wonder what world she's living in. We'll get into it when Barnes gets here. The expert evidence, the dude had a lot of drugs in his system, ketamine, from what I understand. The expert evidence, he was alive after Penny released the so-called chokehold. But wait to see where this goes. They're living in a parallel universe of fiction.
They will not find a white man guilty of killing a black man in modern day America. This is no different than Jim Crow.
Okay, first of all, back it up. You will not convict a white man for killing a black man in modern day America. Set aside how you feel about the convictions, because I actually, after having paid close attention to the Derek Chauvin trial, thought he would get acquitted, believed he should have gotten acquitted because of the reasonable doubt of the drugs that were also in the system of George Floyd. The woman makes a statement. You will never convict a white man for killing a black man in modern day America. Derek Chauvin has entered the chat. Kim Potter has entered the chat. You remember the woman who pulled out her real gun instead of her taser? Killed, I forget the guy's name. No, that's just two in the last, 2 years. Never, won't happen. Because America's so racist, they don't just actually convict white people for killing white cops, white men for killing black people. They wrongly convict them. Because if I think, Kim Potter, whatever she was guilty of, probably should have been lesser than what she was tried for and convicted of. But just don't let reality get in the way of a good narrative, man.
This looks like a picture out of the picture book when you look at that anonymous jury. We have baby boomers who were there doing Jim Crow on this jury. We have young people.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is this jury intimidation? Is this threatening a jury? When they say like jury members don't want to release their names because for jury intimidation, yeah, they're right. It's just never coming from them. The right.
Who are looking at Daniel Penny as a hero. And what America is a hero, a killer. He didn't give a crap about Jordan. The medical examiner said Jordan turned purple. Yes, black people can turn purple when they're denied oxygen. Every lab report showed he died of asphyxiation. And that doesn't matter because they want to spare a white man the penalty of his crimes. America has not changed, and I hate to say it, it may never change. And people who keep asking, are we going to riot? Are we going to protest? Is that what's needed? Do glass have to break? Do cars have to burn for a black man to get justice in America? We can't show up with peace. We can't show up with facts. We can't show up with evidence and witness after witness. You give us nothing. And then you ask us to love this country. America hates black people, and we see it from that jury pool.
Well, that's one heck of a fantastical hissy fit right there. Can you believe it? I mean, it is nothing but overt jury intimidation in real time. They're gonna burn the city down if they don't get their way on yet another lynch mob conviction of Daniel Penny. I put out a tweet earlier today. Said, you know who killed Daniel Penny? BLM killed Daniel Penny. And there are stats to prove this affirmation, not that BLM literally killed Daniel Penny. You make it much more difficult for cops to patrol difficult areas. You make them a little bit more reluctant to intervene when a perpetrator is black. You're killing black people by doing that. And it's either the perpetrators or the victims of the crimes of perpetrators. You know who killed Jordan Neely, the AOC progressives of this world who would sooner pay more attention to illegal immigrants than to their own struggling citizens. You know who killed Jordan Neely? Not Daniel Penny. The policies that gave that man access to drugs, left him on the streets, turnstile cash bail systems that just kick him out of prison every single time. So that he's on the metro after a 3 years of history of unprovoked violent assaults on women. And then he's flipping his shit because he's high off as a kite off ketamine, doing God. You guys watch some videos of what people high on drugs can do. They literally eat faces, and I'm not trying to be funny. That's a different drug. I think that's crocodile. They will literally eat faces. You got some dude with a history of violence. Oh, but he didn't assault anyone on that train. And you get these virtue signaling jackasses on the internet. Oh, Daniel Penny's a murderer. Jordan Neely should be alive today. If the system in that communist hellhole of a state, New York, worked, if you didn't squander hundreds of millions of dollars on illegal immigrants because you created a problem out of whole cloth that you have no solution to, going back to Neil deGrasse Tyson, Jordan Neely would still be alive. That's right. And now they're threatening the jury. Now they're threatening the city. Get another lynch mob, unjust conviction of a white person who had to intervene and probably save people on that bus. And by the way, I don't know what fantastical world she's living in. I didn't hear anybody saying, please stop. I didn't hear anybody on that metro saying that it was Metro's Canadian subway saying that Daniel Penny is a murderer. I heard them saying that he's an actual hero. And you're going to hear what's going on in the court when Barnes gets in here. I see him in the backdrop. Wait until you hear. They go from a lynch mob prosecution. They want to get a lynch mob conviction. And if they can't eke out the lynch mob conviction, the judge is going to do his best to make sure that they're not at the front of his front door like they were at Kavanaugh's. Robert Barnes, sir, how goes the battle?
Surviving.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to good in a couple of weeks. You did a bourbon with Barnes last week, and the community was happy, relieved, and you're looking on the mend. Robert, we got the shirt. We'll be wild. That's what Trump said in his tweet that was impeachable for
January 6th conspiracy.
Oh yeah. So let me see. I think I can list off what we're talking about tonight. It's going to be one heck of a banger show, but we're obviously starting with Daniel Penny. On the menu, I'll do it. Oh my gosh, the oral arguments of the trans treatments for kids. The Daniel Penny, you're going to make sense of this because I think now we got more information. We can make sense of it. Hawk Tuah chick. I have so many dirty jokes. There's a scandal with her meme coin or whatever the heck it was. Syria is going down. We're going to talk about that as well, or at least not going down, but it's an amazing thing how, crossing certain lines in the last 2 months in terms of striking within Russia, regime overthrow in the last month. It's amazing. They can't let peace reign, and a bunch of other stuff, Robert. Okay, look, we're on the Daniel Penny trial topic right now. We'll start with that one. Setting aside all of that intro, Robert, the trial came, the trial went. By all accounts, and I've got a former EMT up in Canada who helps me make sense of these things. Chet, thank you for a very thorough breakdown of why they don't administer mouth-to-mouth on someone overdosing on ketamine. The trial came, the trial went. There's some very, very, it's not just attenuating evidence. It's like there's reasonable doubt is not just, this was, if not clear self-defense, a clear necessity to prevent violent assault. There's good reason to believe Neely died, not as a result of the chokehold, but as a result of a ketamine overdose because it occurred later on. He was still breathing after the chokehold was released. A whole bunch of stuff that lends to not just reasonable doubt, but outright acquittal. The issue is that there seems to be some holdouts on that jury that they cannot come to a unanimous acquittal. And whether or not it has anything to do with the guy wearing 2 masks who's depicted in that court drawing, which I'll bring up when you talk, they can't come to a universal acquittal on the greater charge, which is second-degree manslaughter. I hope that's the right charge. The other one is criminally negligent homicide. And shit got a little wonky on Friday, where it sounded like the judge was saying, don't tell them what is exactly happening with the greater charge, or the higher charge. Just tell them it's dismissed and don't tell them it's an acquittal, and let them go back and deliberate on the lesser charge, which carries upwards of a 4-year maximum sentence. There was some confusion as to whether or not it was being concealed, that the judge was concealing or setting aside the fact that there was a hung jury on the greater charge, which could lead to a retrial on that hung jury charge, as opposed to what actually happened, which was an outright dismissal from the prosecution that was objected to by the defense, which means that you can't be retried for it. And so the judge wanted to hide that fact from the jury while sending them back to deliberate on the lesser charge. And a lot of people were rightly screaming scandal on the interwebs. And I mean, you tell me if this is, the judge said in his, according to the reporting from Intercity Press, I'll take my chance with your theory, people's motion, and not explain to them the consequences, the legal consequences of the dismissal, which is tantamount to an acquittal. How dirty is it, Robert?
I mean, it's to a degree, it's commonplace. In other words, that the judges, sort of do whatever prosecutors want them to do far more often than not. And most people are just unaware of this because they don't normally see the criminal justice process unfurl or unfold in a public way, or not paying much attention to it because they have no reason to. And so consequently, they don't realize how common this kind of behavior is. Now, this particular instruction, choosing to go from an Allen instruction, which is controversial in its own accord, which many defense lawyers feel is a coercive instruction intended to force the holdout to quit holding out, is the assumption that most prosecutors and judges have when they give an Allen charge, is that the holdout is a defense holdout, not the other way around.
Could you explain? I know what it is that many people might not. Allen charge is basically go back and really, really try to come to a conclusion.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what many defense lawyers, and I concur with them, see it as an attempt to intimidate the jury into not performing their job. If there's a juror that says, "Hey, look, I don't believe he's guilty," you shouldn't get barraged by the judge. Well, you need to go back and rethink that, because what message does that send? Because that's in essence what typically happens here. And so that's its own controversial component. I mean, this is a case that would not have been brought in 90% of the country.
Mm-hmm.
It was only brought in New York because he's the wrong race, that the victim was black and he was white. If it was the other way around, because the other way around has happened in New York with this prosecutor, and they have not prosecuted. So they're prosecuting him because he's the wrong race, as Jeremy Carl pointed out. It's also part of a broader pattern of wanting to eviscerate self-defense, to say that the only people who have the right of defense are the government, to give the state a monopoly on the use of force and deprive it of us, which is what the Second Amendment is supposed to be there for. The Second Amendment being broader than just the right to bear arms. It's the right to have your self-defense against others, including the government or anyone else, and not having to depend or rely exclusively on the government for that. So that's sort of the political backstory of what's happening in New York. So it was the right race to prosecute, the right undermining self-defense prosecution that they wanted. It's similar to the Rittenhouse case out of Wisconsin, where the was straightforward self-defense, wouldn't have been brought in many jurisdictions, was because of the particular politics of the prosecutor in that case. And here the X factor was the jury, that you have a Manhattan jury pool, and having dealt with them, the Manhattan jury pool in past cases, including political cases, like the so-called Central Park Karen case of Amy Cooper and others. We did surveys on that. We tested that there's a lot of bad jurors. So the fact that you have a double-masked guy is not, is probably, I mean, what's the likelihood that juror is a pro-defense juror? Hard to imagine that, to be honest with you, because it sounds like an intimidated, a authoritarian personality who will do what the state tells him to do.
Oh, and not just that, someone who's so germ neurotic, they're not taking the subway in any event, and they don't have to deal with any of that crap. Probably working from home.
Correct. So it always came down to the jury, and could you get a reasonable jury? And there were two aspects of that. One was, could you get a reasonable jury in the sense of an acquittal, which is what I think a reasonable jury would do in most cases. But in Manhattan, it would be probably more, half a dozen of this, half a dozen of the other. You're probably looking as much to put people on the jury that will just not convict no matter what. But because you're probably going to get stuck with jurors who want to convict no matter what. And what the judge did was basically give an instruction: go back and give me a conviction, and ignore the top count that you can't agree on. So that is an unusual phenomenon in New York. As the defense counsel pointed out, this encourages prosecutors to overcharge if they can just dismiss the charges come verdict time. That the reason disincentive for prosecutors to overcharge is that if they can't get an agreement in New York on that top count, they don't go to the lower counts, is my understanding. And so that's why they took a gamble. The gamble backfired on them, and they were like, "Okay, let's pretend we never took this gamble." And the judge is like, "Yeah, I agree. We need to convict this kid no matter what." That's really what's going on. And the question is whether or not there's enough honest, honorable jurors to make sure he's not convicted of a crime he did not do.
So they go back to, or they're back in deliberations. They're not sequestered. From what I understand, some of them are following the media, so they're listening to the Black Lives Matter lady threaten their safety if they don't give them the conviction they want. And they come back tomorrow to adjudicate on the lesser charge, which was criminally negligent homicide, which is still a felony that carries a maximum sentence of 4 years.
Correct. So at least he doesn't face an extended time in prison, but it's ridiculous that he faces any time in prison.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, why do I hear something here? Son of a gun. Sorry, I was going to just say that I'm able now to toggle between screens without seeing the spinning wheel of death. This computer is fast and furious, people.
Oh yeah, you got the new one, right?
I know. Well, the new one that I ordered, a member of our community, Encryptus, said I should get as much unified memory as possible, and so it was an add-on, and it cost like extra money, and I had to wait like 2 weeks for the computer to come. And then, like, I'm sitting here 2 weeks and 2 days, it's not here. I look and they canceled the order, and I didn't get any notification. So I just ordered a sort of standard 16-inch with 48 gigs of unified memory, and thus far, it's very good. Let me read 3 Rumble rants before they disappear. $50 from Chance Uptimore says, I am a Jan 6er with exclusive footage regarding agent provocateur. I was a victim of FBI lawfare charged with the same rare statute Biden was just pardoned for. Your viewers might be interested in my story. I'm willing to do an interview if you are, as am I. So I've screen grabbed that, and I'm gonna Chance Uptimore, and I'll see if I can get you. If I can find a way to get in touch with you, you can try to find me on Twitter. Then we got Boz Bundalo says, what drivel? Very unfortunate time for her. You don't want to expose yourself too much when everyone knows you are stealing money and committing fraud. And I presume that's about the Black Lives Matter fraud. It would be beautiful to see $10 Daniel Penny supporters. 10,000 Daniel Penny supporters outside the courthouse on Monday. Yeah, until they call that an insurrection and use the powers of the FBI to go after all of them. Robert, okay, before we head on, everybody, by the way, if you're new to the channel, we start on all 4 platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And then we vote with our feet and our dollars, and we head over to Rumble and Locals. And then we have a Locals after party for supporters only. What I was going to say is, before we go over there, let's deal with the big freaking news of the day. Assad regime has fallen. Who the hell has caused them to fall? How the hell does it happen now? What the hell happens now? From what I understand, Assad and his family have fled to and sought refuge in Russia. David Axelrod had a great joke that Assad went and spent the night over at Tulsi Gabbard's couch. And I'm like, you effing pervert. It's always about stupid sex with you disgusting pervs. And also your comedy is about as good as your political insight. Rebels have overthrown the Assad regime and chased him out of the country. And now what this means, I mean, now you see Netanyahu and Israel talking about going in. I don't know if they're already bombing chemical factories or whatever the heck they're going to do. I don't know who's going to replace Assad. It sounds like it's going to be highly Islamic regimes, which I don't know how you measure levels of badness, but that might not be better than Assad. What do you make of this? Why now? Is this another military-industrial complex instigated, subsidized coup to overthrow Assad that they've wanted to do for the last decade plus?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's sort of a decision that was made some time ago that we went from, you had the Ottoman Empire, which controlled most of the Middle East, even if it was kind of weak by the 19th century, that was replaced by, the Brits and the French and everybody getting together in World War I. And the Brits and the French made all kinds of promises. Greater Syria was one of the very original first ever promises made, that was going to be given to certain royal wings within the Arab world that if they would rebel against the Ottoman Empire. And so of course, we made competing and conflicting promises to different groups and different people. And the French wanted their piece, the Brits wanted their piece, the Americans wanted their piece. So you have all these competing, conflicting areas of empire, making conflicting promises to different groups within the Arab world over a century ago, of which many were promises were not kept. And we're still experiencing the fallout from that more than a century later. And part of what the sort of median compromise was by some groups within that realm was that they would have sort of either royalist or secular leaders. And secular in the sense that they weren't over the top Islamist in the way that, say, Iran is or Hamas is. And you had some of that in Nasser in Egypt, and Nasser for a while united with Syria. And Assad's father came up under that power regime, and Syria was, you have Kurds, you have different Islamic groups, you have Christian groups that have long been there. So you have a wide, and then you have conflicts between there and Lebanon, conflicts between there and Israel, and everybody wanting to dominate the Islamic world. So Nasser wanting to be the leader of the Islamic world. MBS currently wants to be the leader from Saudi Arabia of the Islamic world. The Iranians wanting to be the leaders of the Islamic world. This sort of Islamist mantle claim to power that they have sought out now for over a century, with the backdrop of these various betrayals and empire politics constantly creating conflict in the region. And you had a relatively peaceful time period, all things being considered, for a pretty extended time period from the 60s through the 80s, in the sense of, between Nasser and others in Egypt, the Assad regime in Syria, the Saddam Hussein regime in Iraq, the Gaddafi regime in Libya. These were not Islamists. These were not Islamist supremacists. These were people who were even occasionally sporadically critical of various Islamist supremacist mindsets and mentality. And after the end of the Soviet Union, as General Clark talked about, people, the CIA and the rest, decided that they wanted to break up. That was their great opportunity to remove Russia's influence in the Middle East and take over the Middle East, and sort of recreate what they created with the Shah back in the 70s and 60s in Iran. And then what we did was unleash every kind of. We sided with everybody at one time or another, so that there's no bad guy we have not been on the side of. If you want to look up an interesting article, anti-Soviet leader wins in Afghanistan. Go find that headline from the New York Times. Find who the photo is of that Americans were cheering that day. They were cheering, of course, Osama bin Laden. He is the anti-Soviet leader Americans had helped free Afghanistan for. How did that turn out? I mean, Afghanistan, disaster. Libya, disaster. Iraq, disaster. Lebanon, disaster. And now we're going to have Syria, disaster. These people can't help themselves. They are thrilled and ecstatic at their removal of Assad. You could be critical of Assad. I mean, the regimes were not known for their kindness or politeness in the way they handled a whole bunch of things, known for torture and other bad treatment of a range of groups. But you always, in the Middle East or any place else, have to ask, what's the alternative? And it's the number one question our elites don't ask because they don't care.
Well, I mean, what are the alternatives in Syria?
Oh, they're all Islamic.
ISIS or
they can
Al-Qaeda?
go back and look. The U.S. State Department, the guy that just is now the head of Syria, was a listed wanted man for $10 million just 8 years ago by the U.S. State Department. He's one of the leading Islamist terrorists in the world. That's who just took over Syria. And that's who our so-called smart people are praising. That's who David Axelrod is praising. That's who the establishment types and the Ukraine lovers are praising. They're praising a known terrorist with one of the most vicious reputations in the world. Now, how did this come about? It came about entirely because the other leader that people forget about in that region that wants to be the Islamic leader of the world. Right? It's been a phenomenon in the Islamic world ever since we seeded the idea to take out the Ottomans. We were the ones that came in and say, shouldn't you be the great Arab leader of the world? Shouldn't you be the great Islamic leader of the world? Why should you be dominated by the Ottomans? Well, guess who it is that wants to restore that Ottoman Empire? It is the one and only President Erdogan of Turkey. This is his group. He's organized them. He's protected them. He's safeguarded them. He's funded them. He's trained them. He's armed them. But it would have not been any chance of success if the U.S., the U.K., and France were not neck deep in this. And this, again, goes centuries old. I mean, the U.S., U.K., and France have been messing around in Syria for more than 100 years. Helped create what is called Syria, what it was called when it was called Greater Syria before that. And we've gone back and forth at who we're going to be buddies and pals with. But the removal of Assad just destabilizes a huge part of a country and removes somebody from that region that has kept stability in that region that otherwise is probably going to now look like Iraq and Libya. So, we're just going to be waiting for the human trafficking centers to be in the center of Damascus, this historically religious city. The Christians are already nervous about what might happen. Most of the Christians have already fled Syria over the years, as they have fled Lebanon much over the years, despite what some people have said in that space. If track it, you'll see otherwise. Same in the Gaza Strip. There used to be a lot more Christians in Gaza than there are today. That isn't because of Israelis, by the way. But it's just a disaster waiting to happen. And now, they've seeded this disaster on Trump's lap. That Trump's going to come into a region with Syria. What he has said is he wants the U.S. out of it. Even though he's talking about the U.S. should stay out of it, that's true. But the U.S. has not stayed out of it. The U.S. has been neck deep in it. The U.S. has been all over the place, seizing property, seizing oil, seizing foods, seizing items, bombing places, providing troops, providing intel. Without the United States, they never would have been able to overthrow Assad. And how likely is it that overthrowing Assad will turn out any better than overthrowing Gaddafi or overthrowing Husseini? I doubt it.
Well, and it's not just that. Like, they don't have nuclear weapons, but they clearly have chemical weapons and biological weapons. And the argument was, who was the actual culprit of using those on Syrians back when there was what I think most agree now was a false flag, or at least it wasn't Assad that had used the chemical weapons on his people. Hypothetically, I mean, these weapons fall into the hands of somebody, and somebody, in as much as Assad was a bad guy, and there's no downplaying that, he wasn't using those chemical or biological weapons for international terrorism. The same cannot, and obviously is not necessarily even going to be true of the entities that will replace Assad and take control over these weapons.
Well, yeah, not only that, you have how the issues are going to be resolved with Iran, which has various militias and proxies at present in Syria, how Lebanon handles it, how Hezbollah handles it. You've got all these. You've created this huge space. So Israel's reaction is, well, now Syria can no longer safeguard their treaties. So we're going to go into the Golan Heights and some of those sections and secure those. And apparently we're part of bombing various places they thought had stored chemical weapons before the other groups could get their hands on them. That's the concern current, as you mentioned. That's one of the concerns is, what weapons will they now get? The Syrian army has left to Iraq, so I mean that's basically an extension of Iran now. Assad was trying to balance out like his father and try to create a coalition. He was working with the Gulf states and other states. Now that's gone, so that Syria is either going to be in the back pocket of, it's either going to be an extension of Turkey or an extension of Iran. That's kind of where we're at currently. Either way, we're probably going to have looting, rioting, crime, religious violence, sectarian violence, all those things. It's going to be a disaster. I mean, that's what Libya became. That's what Iraq became. There's no reason to think Syria will be any different.
Let me bring this one up here.
Did you bring it up?
What opportunity for whom? Sorry, it's tough not to be very, very cynical of everything, but listen to this.
Am I supposed to be listening to something?
Oh, was that you, Robert?
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, you're not. Hold on. Am I an idiot?
I think it's just you looking at the camera.
Yeah, I'm just an idiot. That's not the computer, guys. You see it now?
I don't see it yet.
Hold on. What the heck is going? This might not be me. This is okay. I'm here. I'm going to open this because I'm sure that's great. I'm nice. I'm watching a video that nobody's watching. Now you see it.
I don't.
What the in the name is going? Hold on. I'm in presentation. Well, that's very weird. Stop share screen. Well, I shared the screen during this very stream. Duo presentation. It's Netanyahu talking about it. How is this possible? I literally shared already during this stream.
It's Mossad.
Well, it's Netanyahu talking about what a great event this is. That it's a momentous day. And that
I know, and they've often. I've never understood that mindset. I've never understood the mindset of that Netanyahu has. That anybody that's ever opposed Israel, their removal is a good thing. Because it's who's going to replace them?
The amazing thing
I
is,
mean, Hussein was not the threat that Iraq is now. Libya under Gaddafi was not the threat that it is now. Syria without Assad is a greater threat to Israel than it was before then. So it's like, how is there anything to cheer here? I'm not understanding that at all. But they've often had this very, at least Netanyahu, short-minded, short sense, short-term sense of just this guy's bad, he's gone, that means good. And he's often been dead wrong about that. I mean, just like his promoting Hamas to compete with the PLO and Fatah. I mean, that totally backfired on him. And he just hasn't had to pay a political price for it. But it was clearly a disaster in what it led to. And I think this is another example of that.
It seems unable to share the screen for whatever. The clip is on the internet. Go watch it if you want to see what appears to be someone reveling in the outcome that they've always wanted. He says it's happened because they were so hard on Hezbollah and what's the other one in Israel? Hezbollah and the other terrorist group, Hamas. He says it's because they were so hard on them that Syria has magically fallen.
It was just purely Turkey doing what they wanted to do, and Russia being in a careful position. Now, I mean, granted, clearly Assad, there were issues with how he had managed and how his father had managed the government. I mean, that a big part of Syria's problems are of Assad's own making, no doubt about that. But without all the foreign intervention, the Assad regime would still control Syria.
Let's do one more quickly before we head on over.
We got the pardons. I mean, we got the pardons as predicted, no less.
Well, pardons. Okay, we're gonna lump all this together. Pardons as predicted. What's his face? Chad Cronister withdrew his candidacy. So we have a bit of a microphone here, peeps, and people are listening. The pardon, Robert. Okay, what day of the week was that? Only last week the pardon? Like the pardon it happened the day we were live, and then the fallout happened afterwards. Joe Biden has made the Democrats look like a bunch of lying jackasses. Period. Dan Goldman especially is the grossest of lying jackasses on the internet. The montage of Karine Jean-Pierre saying, "No, I'm not going to pardon." No, the answer is still no, 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 no. Yes, a decade, a blanket pardon. I'm going to ask you the first question that I want to ask. So Joe Biden gets a 10-year blanket pardon for everything for which he was charged, potentially charged, and anything that has not yet happened that we didn't know about. That's that blanket for a decade of immunity at the federal level. People were saying on the internet, yeah, well, now he can't plead the fifth anymore. And then during a stream last week, someone says, yeah, well, he could still plead the fifth because he could still be incriminating himself potentially at a state level or an international court if we want to go there. But let's stick with the state level. So it is legally correct that once you've been given a pardon, you can no longer invoke the fifth because there's no risk of incrimination. But how does that play in terms of a potential state prosecution, which he could incriminate himself in by speaking if summoned before Congress?
It depends on the circumstances is the short answer. So it depends on what the state prosecution can be as to how it interacts with the question and the pardon, and as to whether or not you still have any degree. You don't have Fifth Amendment immunity for federal prosecution because you're immune for anything that the pardon covers from federal prosecution. So the question becomes, does the question concern state prosecution? And in that instance, can you assert the Fifth Amendment right if you have its equivalent under the state constitution, which you often do? Or you could argue to the due process clause against the states in general. And that will depend on the specific nature of the question and the specific nature of the risk under the state law.
Okay. The people are also saying that the pardon is actually just Biden covering his own ass, because now Hunter will not be able to testify. In theory, he won't be able to be prosecuted for financial crimes, which would tie their way into Joe Biden's influence peddling that had occurred over the last decade. By the way, the 2014 starting point is when Biden joined Burisma.
Yes.
No coincidence there. So what's your take on whether or not this protects Biden? Because first of all, I mean, he's on his way out, not just of the office, but of this planet, and not wishing any ill. He's 81 years old and clearly past his due date. I mean, what do you make of this? Is he protecting himself? Does he still got exposure? Has anyone else in the family still got any meaningful legal exposure for the family crime syndicate that is the Biden family?
Oh, I mean, no doubt. Both the sister, the brother, and Joe himself, and Jill would all have exposure because of the way they were so systemic in their criminal family operations. But they were also, a critical component of deep state criminality. And that's, I think, where the real protection is ultimately. So by protecting the Bidens, he protects the deep state. So I would anticipate more pardons coming. I mean, my original, what I said from day one is that he would never let the son go in, and he'd let the son know that he would pardon him when the time was right, until after the election. So that prediction has now come to fruition. The only question is, does the other prediction come to fruition? Does he extend the pardon to others, such as Donald Trump? Does he extend it to other members of his own family? Does he extend it to Anthony Fauci? Does he extend it to a whole bunch of deep state Democrats or high-ranking rhino Republicans who don't want any scrutiny coming their way for what they've been up to the last decade or so? Whether that's Mitch McConnell's wife. I mean, there's a lot of people that belong in prison up there in Washington. And all of them would like pardons. So now that he's already opened the door by pardoning his son, expect that door to be opened up further. You're already seeing prominent Democrats saying, hey, pardon Trump too. Fetterman was making the rounds saying, pardon Trump. The Congressman Clyburn from South Carolina was making the rounds saying, yeah, let's pardon Trump. Some other prominent Democrats, Bill Clinton was even suggesting pardon Trump. And extend the pardons. Just pardon a whole bunch of people. And they will use they're already starting with the pitch that we talked about that they would use 2 years ago. Said the pitch would be, we need to get past all this politics. We can't be dragged down by all of this. Let's just move on and pardon everybody on the way out the door. And that's already their pitch they're making. Clyburn was already saying it this morning on the Sunday morning shows, saying that, hey, it's time to move on. We can't get dragged down in this way. Let's just pardon everybody across the board politically. And it's just a coincidence 98% of them will be Democrats or COVID criminals.
I was going to ask something. Okay, so the pardon, does Biden he can pardon himself as well?
Oh, absolutely. I know some people that want to limit the pardon power. First of all, the plain language of the Constitution doesn't limit it. It talks about reprievals and pardons. It puts no restriction whatsoever on it. The history of it would not favor restricting that power whatsoever. So just because you don't like who Joe Biden may pardon is no reason at all to take away the Constitution's grant of that power to the president. What it should be a green light to Donald John Trump to really exercise the pardon power in the way our founders meant it. Mm-hmm. Use it to highlight problematic cases. Use it to highlight the January 6th cases. Use it to highlight Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro in those cases. But go beyond those. Use it to highlight the meme case. I mean, obviously, he should be pardoned, Mackey, out of the Eastern District of New York. But there's other cases along those lines. Pardon Julian Assange. Pardon Edward Snowden. Pardon, or at least commute, Ross Ulbricht. Pardon Roger Ver, Bitcoin Jesus, as he's colloquially known. Pardon any of these people that have been caught up or targeted for political reasons over the past decade. There are people that have already served their time that deserve pardons as well. And just highlight these cases that, hey, our Justice Department got out of hand. Our FBI got out of hand. Our criminal agencies, enforcement agencies got out of hand. Our federal judiciary got out of hand. And highlight them week after week after week with high-profile pardon after pardon after pardon. Don't look at what Biden did as a reason to complain about what Biden did. Well, you look at it as an opportunity to use that power in a way that it was intended by the founders, which is a robust power, and to highlight and to educate the broader American public on how out of control the civil and criminal justice systems have become in the United States in the past half decade, and use high-profile cases to attract attention to it. Whether it's the January 6 cases, Steve Bannon, Bitcoin Jesus, Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. Look at every single whistleblower that Obama prosecuted, every single whistleblower that Biden prosecuted. Pardon every single one of them. That you can't trust those prosecutions. You can't trust the way those prosecutions were handled. You can't trust the way those administrative operations took place. So that Trump should use it as an opportunity to really use the pardon for the people it was intended for.
Correcting one thing earlier, it was not ketamine, it was K2, the synthetic marijuana, which has been linked to loss of consciousness, tachycardia, diffuse pain. K2, not ketamine. So correcting myself, everybody. Thank you. The question was this whole, going back to the pardon. People are asking also, can the pardon ever be revisited? Can someone undermine
Can't reverse a pardon. It's done.
Okay. And now on Friday, I had on Coy Griffin, who was, I didn't know that there was a distinction between, is there such a pardon of innocence versus a pardon? Is there a distinction from the presidential level in terms of whether or not the pardon can say, I'm not just forgiving you for what you did, but I'm also proclaiming you innocent in this pardon?
You can say that, but legally it's the same.
Okay. And by the way, just the FYI for everybody, if you go to, it is givesendgo.com/fight. If you do want to help out with Coy, he had a, oh, I can't share it because it can't see the screen. And someone said, refresh. I'm not refreshing because the lesser problem is not being able to share the screen. I refresh and end this stream. Not doing that. Although we'll see if it allows us to end on YouTube and go over to Rumble, which is what we're going to do right now. Before we do that, and I can't show all of the rants. Chet Chisholm says, Jordan Lilly was on K2, a synthetic cannabinoid. My mistake earlier when I thought K, I thought it was ketamine. Still dangerous, causes cardiac issues in high enough doses. Etexley, I wish Trump would tap Senator Gus Perna for DEA admin. He developed and ran Operation Warp Speed. Drug trafficking is a logistics enterprise. Jen Perna was the Army's 4-star logistics expert, retired now. V6 Neon says Democrats doing a Sergeant Schultz German accent regarding pardons. Cover up in lawfare. I know nothing. I see nothing. I hear nothing. Bulldozer says refresh Viva makes your stream restart. Cameron Mike not doing that. And Schmickel. Payman Ascari, a PPC candidate, just interviewed the representative Peter McIsaac regarding the court case in Nova Scotia on independence being left out of the election. Oh, that's King of Biltong. I can't bring it up. Nobody's going to see this, but looking for some healthy, high-protein stocking stuffers this season, get yours at biltongusa.com. We will ship Biltong to your loved ones, door-to-door, 10% discount with code VIVA. That is biltongusa.com. And then we got Schmickel with Elections Canada, saying in Canada, they're modernizing the electoral system for the federal election. Voter lists, same thing happened in BC elections. Check out at The Remanded on X. Robert, do you still see me? Oh. Not knowing if I'm still viewable, I'm going to go ahead and refresh. So what just happened? Let's see if Robert comes back in here. All right, Robert. Now, can I switch windows? I can do like this. When did everyone lose me?
Only for a second, I think.
Okay, good. Just refresh them. And let's see. Well, I refreshed. Let's just see if this works now. Oh, do you see anything?
Yeah.
Oh, looky. Dude, once bitten, twice shy. I don't want to refresh because the last time I did that. Pinochet's helicopter tour says, enough with the pardons. If thousands of corrupt feds and politicians are not destroyed for what they did, they'll do it again. If you rig the ballot box, nullify the juror box with pardons. Nah, I'm not reading that part. But Robert, the pardons don't end state prosecutions. So hypothetically, Hunter Biden, sex trafficked. I don't know what this, they can still go after him at the state level.
Yes.
Just not for tax issues. So I don't know. It's with Hunter, it seems a little bit illusory.
It's because nobody's gone after him on the state level.
Okay, well, let me see here. Damn it. Oh, here we go. Now we can listen to Bibi for a second. Yeah, listen to this.
This is a historic day for the Middle East.
Oh, that's great.
The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats.
Oh, yeah.
One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel.
There is only hostile forces in Syria, left in Syria.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, for the most part, I don't know what some Assad supporters and some Christian groups and others that are still present, because because of the collapse took place so fast, because the army had imploded without recognition that it had imploded.
Position until a suitable arrangement is found.
Suitable.
Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel and the border of Israel.
It's amazing. If you analogize that to COVID, it's a great opportunity. Temporary measures. We'll just go in and it'll be temporary until it's suitable. And this is gonna.
Yeah, I've never understood the logic. I mean, it was clear that Syria was a manageable partner for Israel, for the Middle East, for anybody else under Assad. Now it's not. How is that an improvement? How has this worked out good for anybody yet? It's like, oh yeah, I see all these people cheering on the internet. And it's like, you're the same people who cheered when Afghanistan fell. You're the same people who cheered when Libya fell. And you're the same people who cheered when Iraq fell. All three have been utter disasters. Why do you think Syria will be any different? I'm yet to hear a single persuasive argument for it from any of these cheerleader types.
All right, we are moving over to Rumble or Locals. The links are there. Thank you to our sponsors of the evening, Crowd Health and Home Title Lock. Check out the links there in the description. And now I'm going to update the stream. Make sure I don't do anything stupid with my fat fingers here. I'm going to go like this. Rumble and Locals, and it's going to end on Twitter or X and CommieTube. Get your butts on over if you don't want to. It will be on podcast tomorrow, and the entire stream will be posted as well, either on Viva Fry or Viva Clips. I'll see which way I want to screw things up there.
By the way, was that snake a poisonous snake or not? The one that
it was
you were
not,
picking
but
up
they're
and throwing around.
It's the consensus. It was the brown-bellied mud snake. They're not venomous, but they're nervous, which means snakes bite, man. Like even the I don't want to get bit by a non-venomous snake. That thing looked pissed also, but it was better than getting run over by a car.
It did look ticked off, but Ethan was ready to just go in there and just get a hold of him.
Well, now that we know what it looks like, I'll let him. I don't say I'll let him get bit. That might be neglect. He wanted to, but we'll do it sooner than later. Come on over to Rumble or VivaBarnesLaw.locals.com. 3, 2, 1.